Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to my channel. As you guys can see by the title of this video, I am back with another video. So this was actually a highly requested video. I think I wasn't very clear when I asked you guys what questions do you have about working here while studying. Essentially I was talking about people that are coming here to be teachers and would be studying as a part-time thing, and that's the video I had up with Ruspe, who is currently studying through UNISA but is working as a teacher in Korea. If you haven't seen that video and you are keen, I'll link it up here right now. So a lot of the comments, a lot of the questions were not really based on that, and I guess my question wasn't clear enough. People were actually thinking I was talking about studying in Korea and not working, or studying in South Korea and getting a part-time job. Now, as you know, I do not know all of that because I'm just here as a teacher, but I did find people. I reached out to two girls who I will be doing two separate videos because I figured if I put both of them in one video it's going to be pretty long. These online collabs have been doing very well, where I basically record my questions and my guest records their answers, and then I mash it together in one video. It's obviously not as interactive as I'd like it to be, because obviously if you are with the person you can react immediately like, oh wow, you know, but here I have to watch and then answer. It's just not as smooth as I'd like it to be, but the information that is relevant is still presented forward. A similar video that I did which went really well was a video which I did with Tabishenge, who is teaching currently in China, and she dropped cool facts, you know, like they make more money than us here in South Korea. So if you do want to teach in China, check out that video also. I'll link it up right here. But I don't want to waste a lot of your time, so let's get into this video. So to my guest, please introduce yourself, your name, and which country you are from.
Hello, my name is Evie and I'm from Nigeria.
Hi Evie, welcome to my channel and thank you so much for agreeing to do this video with me. I love Nigeria. I know so many Nigerians in South Africa as well as here in Korea, so I'm really so glad that you came to my channel. And I know you came to Jeju and we were supposed to meet, and then I don't know what happened. I think I had just lost, I'm not sure, between my grandmother or grandfather. I remember that. I would have loved to see you in person, but at least we are doing this right now and maybe we'll still meet in the future. So I'm curious, which university are you at? What are you studying, or what did you study?
I studied for a master's in information technology at the University of Ulsan here in Korea, South Korea.
Oh wow, so this is a long question. How did you apply? What agency or website did you use, and how long was the process basically from applying back home in Nigeria to finally moving here in Korea? What would you say the timeline was like?
I applied for the Global Korea Scholarship, popularly known as GKS, and for this scholarship it is sponsored by the Korean government and it's available for everybody, so anybody can apply. I think it covers virtually every country, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's available in every country because since I've been in Korea I have met GKS students from all over the world, countries that I didn't even know existed, trust me. So wherever you are, wherever you're from, I think you're eligible for this scholarship.
That is true. That actually happened to me too. Like as I've traveled, I remember when I was in Hong Kong, I met like people from countries where I was like, is that a city? Like I thought it was a city in like Hong Kong. They're like, no, that's a country. And I was like, wow. So I understand. I am actually so glad that anyone can apply. So whether you are from any other African country and you want to study and do your masters, then I really do think you should check it out. I will link it down here below in the description box. I'll also leave their website. And yeah guys, let's do it. South Africans, or wherever you're watching this video from, I think this is a great opportunity.
All right, so what is GKS about, or how do you apply for this scholarship? The GKS scholarship has two tracks. They have the embassy track and the university track, so you can apply from either of the two. I applied for the embassy track, and the embassy track you have 3 universities to pick from, so you're entitled to pick 3 universities in your application. There's a first choice, there's a second choice, there's a third choice. Usually I would advise people to pick regional universities because the competition is low. A lot of people don't want to go to the regions. Everybody wants to go to Seoul, Busan, the popular places. So I would usually advise people, especially if your application is not so strong, you don't have a very high GPA, you don't have very attractive things in your application, then go for the regional school. But if you're really confident and you have a very good GPA, I'm emphasizing GPA because the GKS, they put more attention on the GPA. So if your GPA is high, really high, then you're in luck. Good for you because you'll have a higher chance of getting the scholarship. If your GPA is low, then you just might not get the scholarship. I have a friend that he has a low GPA, and even though he has very attractive things on his application, like, volunteering services, helping and stuff like that, things that you don't get paid for, those things are usually very attractive to put on your applications, like working for free, volunteering somewhere, doing some extracurricular activities apart from studying. It makes your application diverse. It will make them feel like, oh, you're not just only studying, you're also very good in other things. Those things help also. But if you only have those and you don't have a very high GPA also, or a very averagely high GPA, it might be very difficult for you to get it. Like I said, I have a friend that has a low GPA, and even though he has those things, he still didn't get a scholarship. He applied like twice now because the scholarship is available every year, both for undergraduate and postgraduate, and he still hasn't gotten it yet. And by low GPA, I mean like 2.0 or 2.5, things like that is very low. But from like 3.0 is high. So 3.0 is not even really high. 3.0, you just narrowly crossed over. So you might still get it and you might not get it, depending on the number of people that are applying with very high GPAs. You might just be screened out. But if you're in luck and people that are applying are just within the 3.5 range or 4.0, you might still get it. But if you have people with higher GPAs, then you just might not get it. I had a 4-point GPA, so it was a little bit easier for me to get it. So if you have like from a 3.5 upwards, then you have a high chance of getting the scholarship. Let me give more details about how to apply for this scholarship. So I'll start with the embassy track because that is what I applied for, and that is what I came to Korea through. So for the embassy track, like I mentioned, I'm from Nigeria, right? So in Nigeria, we have the Korean Cultural Center, and the Korean Embassy in Nigeria accepts the GKS applications via the Korean Cultural Center. So I submitted my application to the Korean Cultural Center, and they would go through the applications, then pick best 12 from the number of people that apply. They pick only 12. So even if it's 1,000 people that apply, they pick only 12. So that's why I said again, your application has to be really strong. Put your best foot forward. Put everything you got into your application and submit it. So when they pick the 12, they organize an interview and they invite those 12 people for an interview at the Korean Cultural Center. Now, I know most of the audience are South African. It might be a little bit different in South Africa, but generally it's the same process. So if there is a Korean Cultural Center in South Africa, maybe they would also accept the applications through the Korean Cultural Center. But if there isn't, then you have to submit your application to the Korean Embassy in South Africa. So you have to find that out yourself. And then when you submit your application, they call you for an interview if you are shortlisted among the 12, and they ask you a couple of questions like, why do you want to study in Korea? Can you cope with the Korean weather? It can be really cold in the winter. Can you cope with the Korean food? Cultural shocks, all of those. How would you cope? Those are like generic questions you can answer. And then a little bit more specific ones they can ask you. Why do you want to study this particular course outside your country? Why are you picking Korea? Why are you not studying in your country? And you just have to give a good reason why you're not studying in your country. For example, I studied computer science, right? Information technology, and they asked me why I want to go to Korea to study it. I just told them that because Korea is technologically advanced, so studying in Korea would improve my chances of getting a very good job in the future because I would have learned a lot, and it will also advance my skills greatly compared to studying in my country because my country is still a developing country and technology is not as advanced as Korea. Man, I guess that was good enough for them, but you just have to think of something very juicy. Don't say that your country is not good enough, that's why you're going to Korea. If you say that, it's a trap. You're not going to get it because you're throwing your country under the bus, like literally. you have to try to make your country sound good and also make Korea sound good, and then just give some reason why you prefer to study there. You can talk about strengthening relationships between Korea and your country in some way. Anyway, figure that out yourself. Once you pass through the interview phase, if you're lucky, they shortlist 6 people from the 12. If you're lucky to be a part of the 6, good for you. Well, part of 4. So 4, I don't know, for South Africa, in Nigeria, only 4 people get the scholarship to come to Korea from the embassy track. 4 people. They shortlist 6 from the 12, but the remaining 2 are just in a reserved list. So they're just like on reserve. If the schools in Korea do not pick any of those 4, then the person is replaced with somebody on the reserve list. So you can be on the reserve list, and if those 4 people go successfully, you still don't get the scholarship. You have to apply the next year again. So you just have to make sure you're part of the 4 if you want to come to Korea. Now, why would somebody that is part of the 4 end up not going to Korea? The reason is because the school might not have given them admission. Remember I said in the embassy track, you pick 3 schools, right? So if 2 of the schools give you admission, good for you. If all 3 give you admission, then it's your choice now. You can pick from any of the 3 you like, right? And go to the school. If only 1 give you admission, then you're lucky. You're very, very lucky because you almost didn't get it. And if none of them give you admission, then you lose the scholarship and they replace you with somebody on the reserve list. So that's why you have to make sure you're part of the 4, and you have to make sure that at least 1 of the 3 schools give you admission. That's the only advantage of the embassy track over the university track, because the embassy track, you have 3 schools to pick from. While in the university track, you have just 1 school. You are entitled to pick only 1 school. And if that 1 school does not accept you, that's it. You have to wait till the next year to apply again. Now, let me briefly talk about the university track. So for the university track, you have nothing to do with the Korean embassy in your country until you're ready to get your visa. So for the university track, you can go to the Study in Korea website. I'm sure Palesa will put the link down below for you to check it out. From there, you can find all the universities in Korea that have the GKS scholarship program running. If you pick a school that is not under the GKS, you have to pay your fees yourself. But you have to look for a school that is under that has the GKS program. So you pick one of those schools and go through their programs and pick the one you want to study. Then look for, if you're in the science field like me, you need a professor. You look for a professor, email him, tell him your intentions of wanting to study with him in his laboratory. And if he likes your work or whatever you've done or whatever you've studied before, he can give you a chance and pick you, then recommend you to the school, and the school will give you an admission. Once the school gives you an admission, then they would forward your application to GKS. And then GKS would go through it again for a final screening phase. So the GKS scholarship has 3 screening phases. For the embassy track, it has the first embassy screening, then the interview, then the school is going to accept you and send your application to GKS, and GKS will do the final list, right? But for university track, it's just you send your application to the school accepts you, they send it to GKS does the final screening, and they accept you or not. Like I said, high GPA is an advantage. So once GKS accepts you, both the embassy track and those that apply from the university, you are now eligible to apply for the visa to come to Korea. They will put out like a successful list for those that got the scholarship. So like a successful students list for this year's GKS, blah, 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 blah. They put it up there on the Study in Korea website. You can also check the social media like Instagram for maybe your Korean Cultural Center IG page. They also put information like that. For Nigeria, I know there's one. I don't know, for South Africa, you have to check. The one place you can always get it is at the Study in Korea website. The list is always there. GKS uses that website for those things. And then your name is there. Yay, you got the scholarship. Now it's time to apply for a visa. That's when you go to the Korean embassy in your country. You go and submit your application there, and the application fee is free because you are now a GKS person. You are now a scholar of the Korean government, and you're given special treatment, quote unquote special treatment. You don't have to pay the visa fee. You just go submit your application, and you're not denied. You cannot even be denied because the government is backing you. After like a week or so, I don't know how long it will take, but it's less than a month anyway, you get your Korean visa and you come to Korea. Oh, they buy you a ticket also. That's another perk. They buy you a ticket to come to Korea. you come to Korea and you start your studies.
Wow, that is a lot. That is a lot of information, but I love how smooth you explained it. It's like I genuinely did not know anything about this program, but I feel like I know a lot. Like I know everything. I know this, you know, how to apply. So thank you so much for giving us or for sharing this information. I always advise people when they want to come here that literally pick anywhere, pick the least competitive areas like Jeju. Well, not really Jeju, but I understand when you said other regions. Like, don't try go for the big cities like Seoul and Busan. But like she said, if you do have the GPA, high GPA, or if you do have the teaching experience, then you can try and go for the competitive places, but it is risky. Whereas if you just put an okay place, like Korea is not rural. There's no rural. Like rural just is not South African rural. Oh, I'm not sure about Nigeria, but it's not like African rural. It's just, there's a town, there's shops, there's a car, there's taxis. There's nothing that Seoul has that we don't have. Maybe like a big mall or like these shopping centers, but I don't think that's important. and also Korea is small. Like you can really travel from one city to another. You can go to Seoul for the weekend, you can go to Busan. Korea is the size, the whole of Korea, the whole of South Korea is the size of Western Cape, our province, just one province in South Africa. So can you imagine how small that is? Like you can literally travel to Seoul, to Busan. You don't have to live there. Also, it's quite expensive to live there, so it's easier to save money as a teacher while you're there. And as a student, I guess you do have time to travel on weekends, you know. And the interview questions are very similar to what we were asked as teachers, and I think it's a genuine concern. Like, are you really willing to accept Korean culture shock? How are you gonna cope? When I think back to my answers, what I said, and actually living here, it's totally different. So I get why they ask you, because it's nice to visualize and think, oh, I would like Korean food until you get here, which I do love Korean food, but there's some things I eat, there's some things I don't eat. It's just like back in South Africa, there's some things I like, there's some things I don't like. But the weather, there's nothing you can do. Like if it's too cold, it's just too cold, you stay in bed. And if it's too hot, it's just too hot, you turn on the AC, you don't leave your house. But it shouldn't stop you from trying, you know. I also studied IT. Maybe I should come and study here. I mean, I've already lived here, but I think it is true. Like Korea is very tech savvy. There's a lot of things that I didn't know existed. Like on the bus, the bus stops in Jeju are so advanced. Like when you sit down, the seat is warm. When you press, there's like a fan for cooling when it's too hot. That's a great choice. Like honestly, studying technology and living here is like the best thing. When you already said they shortlist to like 12 people for the interview, I was already like, wow, like congrats. And then you said no, they still cut down from 6 to 4. I was like, what? So honestly, like, wow, girl, how did you make it? Congratulations. Guys, in the comment section down below, please congratulate Evie, because wow, like that is impressive. That is very, very impressive. I'm so proud of you. Like, yes, last, wow. And I love how you keep on like saying, I'm not sure about South Africa, which is true. I also don't know. I'm not sure about South Africa. We're just sharing what we know, guys. I think you can do the rest of your research on your own. It actually made me laugh when you said if one university takes you, then you actually like you because you almost didn't make it. That is true. Like, consider yourself lucky. And I think you only do need one university, so you should be fine anyways. And also one major difference is that we do still pay for our visas if you want to teach in Korea, but it's not that expensive. I think it's 850 rand, so it's less than 1,000 rand, and it does take a week. You're correct, a week or less. I think I got mine in 2 days. So I just wanted to know, like, what are the basic requirements? You can summarize this, it doesn't have to be long, just basic requirements.
Basic requirements. If you're undergraduate, you only need to have your high school or secondary school certification. Use that one, but you have to apostille it or notarize it, whichever one is done in your country. You have to do that. For my country, you have to go to the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and then Korean Embassy before you can use those documents in Korea. Same for those that are applying for postgraduate. The only difference is the certificate you're going to be notarizing, right? So you have your, if you're going for masters, you make sure you have your undergraduate certificate, and then you do that, the notarization or authentication or whatever it is you call it. Then if you're going for PhD, you have to have your undergraduate and your master's degree certificate. You need both of them. You don't need secondary school. But if you're going for university, like undergraduate, you need secondary school. And the period of application is also different. So for those applying for undergraduates, the scholarship is usually open, I think, around September or so, because you have to come to Korea in the February of the next year or March of the next year. So you apply, I think, October or November of the previous year. And then for those that are coming for postgraduate, you apply in, I think, February. Here you apply in February, March, and then you arrive in Korea at the end of summer. So maybe at the end of August or early September, you arrive in Korea. It's usually at the end of August though. Like I came at the end of August, and those that have come after me also came at the end of August, and start your language school. Because for the Korean government scholarship, there's a mandatory 1-year Korean language course you have to take. The only way you can escape that Korean language course is if you already have an advanced level Korean ability, proficiency. There's a Korean language exam called TOPIK, test of proficiency in Korean, TOPIK. If you have the TOPIK level 5, then you can skip the language year completely, entirely, and just start your degree. You can just start your undergraduate immediately, or you can just start your master's or PhD immediately. But if you're like me and you didn't know Korean before you came here, it means you don't have TOPIK certificate, and so you have to take the compulsory 1-year Korean language course. They put you in a school. The school they will put you for the Korean language course is different from the school where you're going to do your degree. So for example, if you got admission for your degree in Seoul National University, they might put you in a language school in Busan. The reason why they do that is because they want you to experience different cities in Korea, not just one. So for me, my language school was in Nonsan, but my degree university was in Ulsan. Kind of different. So Nonsan is like in the middle part of Korea, and Ulsan is in the south. You get, so they try to make sure that you have experience in different parts of Korea. So if you have, for example, if you have TOPIK 3 or TOPIK 4, you are not eligible. TOPIK 4 is intermediate level. TOPIK 3 is still intermediate level. TOPIK 1, TOPIK 2 are beginner's level. If you have all those certificates, you still cannot skip the language school. The only way you can skip the language school is if you have TOPIK 5 or TOPIK 6. The highest level is TOPIK 6. Okay, so if you don't have that, like me, you have to go through the language school for 1 year. But there is an opportunity for you to take the language course for only 6 months. If you are really good with languages and you learn very fast, then you can take the TOPIK exam within 6 months of your language program. If you pass the TOPIK exam with TOPIK 5 or 6, you can just go to your degree university and start immediately, and then you skip the remaining 6 months. So it means you spend only 6 months in your language school. But if you don't get the TOPIK 5 within 6 months, you have to stay the entire 1 year, and make sure you get at least TOPIK 3 or TOPIK 4 within that 1 year. If you don't, they give you a grace period of extra 6 months to get the TOPIK 4 or 3, depending on which one your degree university requires. Because a lot of schools in Korea require you to have either TOPIK or English score. So it could be IELTS, could be TOEFL, or could be TOEIC. You need any of those, or you need a TOPIK to graduate. So they usually collect that before you start school. So, but the Korean government scholarship requires you to have at least TOPIK 3 for you to successfully graduate from the language school. So if you don't graduate in 1 year, the Korean government will give you extra 6 months to try to get the TOPIK 3, right? So if you don't get that TOPIK 3 in the extra 6 months, that is, you've spent 1 year and 6 months and you still don't have TOPIK 3, your scholarship is going to be cancelled and you're going to be sent back to your country without any money. So they're not even going to pay for your ticket to go back. Remember, they paid for you to come, right? But they wouldn't pay for you to go back. The only time they pay for you to go back is when you have successfully completed your master's degree or PhD or undergraduate or whatever it is you're going to study in Korea. But if you don't complete it, if you fail, then you have to go back to your country and they're not going to pay for it. But if you're like me and you passed, then after the 1 year, you can go to the your university, your degree university, and start your master's degree or PhD or undergrad. For me, I got the topic 3 in the first 6 months, so I still had to stay the entire year because I didn't get topic 5. If I had gotten topic 5, I would have gone to my degree university just after 6 months and start. But because I didn't get topic 5, I got only 3. I had to stay the rest of the year, but I was comfortable. I was no longer panicking that, oh, I'm going to be sent back to my country because I didn't pass or anything, because topic 3 is also a pass, right? So I was just relaxed and I wasn't studying as much anymore. But by the time the 1 year was over, I was able to get topic 4, which my school required, and I went to my degree university. So that's that about the basic requirements.
Oh my gosh, Evie, once again, congratulations. I don't know how you did that in 6 months, but I mean, if you're here solidly for studying, then I guess it's easier, because for me, my Korean level, wow, I'm still on beginner level, promise, but I'm not even trying, to be honest. I need to do better. I say this every year. I think it's also fair that if you said you want to come here and you want to study and you don't meet the requirements, then you should go back home. It's the same as with us teachers. If you complete your contract, then they buy you flights to go back home. But if you decide to quit, then go back on your own. That's only fair. And I think it's also cool that you are not placed in the same cities, that you get to travel and experience Korea. You get to use your Korean skills that you're learning. You get to use the subway. I think that's actually an awesome idea. And most importantly, wow, I did not know. I actually thought it was for postgrad. So the fact that it's also open for undergrad, this is exciting. I can't wait for you guys. Please, if you're watching this video and you have a sister or brother, like I know my brother's in high school, like I'll definitely be looking out for this program and kind of suggesting it to him if that's an option that he wants to do. So it's exciting that it's not only postgrad, it's also for undergrads as well. That is super cool. So my next question is, are all the modules offered in English? Which is, I think, an important question that I'm curious about. And or do you have to like learn Korean? Like I know you mentioned about the certificate that you study for different topics that determine what level you are on. Is it just just so you get the certificate and you move on and you can communicate basic Korean in the country, or is it because there are some modules that require you to have some sort of like understanding of the language?
For a GKS student, you are required to learn Korean. Like I said, the 1 year. By the time the 1 year is over, you already have the basic Korean language knowledge, and then you don't really have to be a proficient speaker as long as you have your topic score. I had topic 4, like I said, but I'm still not very good in speaking Korean language. So you just need a certificate to be able to go ahead. You have to research on the schools before you pick them, even right from your country. Some schools can tell you, oh, they teach 50% English, 50% Korean. Most schools that say that, it's a lie, guys. They teach in Korean, trust me. Look for a school that writes 100% English. If you pick a school that says 50-50, you are most likely going to get there and realize that everything is taught in Korean. So pick a school that says 100%. Like my school, they said on their website, they said that some courses are taught in 100% English, and then some courses are taught in 100% Korean. So when you arrive at the school, it is now your choice to pick the courses you want. You can pick courses in only Korean, you can pick courses in only English, okay? And then there are some schools that everything is taught in English. Even the Korean students will take the classes in English. So you can pick such schools. An example of such school is GIST, Gwangju Institute of Technology. That's the first school I applied to. That was my first choice. I didn't get it, fortunately or unfortunately, I didn't get into the school because I didn't submit an English score. So because I didn't know I needed to write English, because I was like, oh, I'm from Nigeria, so our official language is English, we don't need English score. But the school gave me the shocker of my life. They were like, no, your country is not part of the 6 official English-speaking countries, so you have to submit an English score, blah 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 blah. And it was too late for me to submit the English score, so I had to defer the admission of that school. And thankfully, because I was embassy track, I had 2 other schools, right? So one of the other 2 schools accepted me, which was University of Ulsan. So I went there. Those ones didn't need my English score since I was already going to be giving them the Korean language score. So yeah, in my school, like I mentioned, they specified that some courses are in English, some courses are in Korean. So when I went there, of course, my Korean, I was not still confident in my Korean even after the 1 year. So I picked all my classes in English. I think there was only one class I took that was Korean. And even that class, the reason why I took that class was because it was my advisor's class. And because he's my thesis advisor, I had to take his class to learn some things I needed for my thesis. So I took that class. But because of me, he spoke English sometimes. So it was like 50% English, 50% Korean, so I could understand a lot of the things he was saying. But 90% of my other classes were strictly English. I made sure I picked only English classes. If you think your Korean is good enough, you can pick Korean classes. All right. And if you're lucky, all the required classes for you might be in only English. And if you're not lucky, you might have some required classes that are in Korean. But for me, all my required classes were in English, except that one that was my professor's class. And because I was a student, he was nice enough to explain in English during the class for the things that I didn't understand.
Oh my gosh, guys, imagine you don't do your research and you sit and you have like modules in Korean. Oh, no ways. I think that's now my biggest fear. Please do your research, please. Wow, I didn't even know like that could be, because if I were to see a school website and it said 50% English, 50% Korean, I'd really trust it. I'd think they'd accommodate me. But I'm so happy that you gave us the tip that if that's the case, then rather go for 100%, because 50, you know, it's not really 50. So do you know any other African countries that can apply for this program?
Like I mentioned, virtually every country. I don't think there's any country that is exempted from this scholarship. Maybe North Korea, I don't know, for obvious reasons. But I don't know, like I said, I think every country. I know most of the audience here are South Africans, so you're concerned about South Africa, right? I am 100% sure that GKS is available in South Africa.
So now the big question, how much are the fees and how do you pay? Like, is it a scholarship? Is it a bursary? How does it work? Do you pay from your own pocket? I'm very curious.
So I didn't really care about the school fees because, like I said, it's a scholarship and the Korean government sponsors it. So they pay the tuition. No matter how expensive the tuition is, they pay for it. So you don't have to worry about the tuition at all. Okay? The only time you have to worry about the tuition is because for masters, they give you 2 years to complete it. The scholarship covers you for 2 years. And for PhD, the scholarship covers you for 3 years. So if you're doing masters and at the end of 2 years you've not been able to graduate, then the Korean government you have to pay part of the school fees yourself. So you have to make sure you graduate in 2 years. But even if you don't graduate in 2 years, it is still fine. Just make sure you complete all your classes within that 2 years, and maybe the remaining time you have is just for your thesis and research and stuff like that. If that's the situation, then Korean government will pay. Your tuition is usually little. So for example, I have a friend that was not able to finish in 2 years, but because she had completed all her classes, her school fees that is normally $6,000 was now only $600, because most of the reason why the fees is high is because of the classes. So if you are done with the classes, you only have to pay for your thesis and stuff like that, which is usually less than $1,000. So because it's very little, the Korean government will still pay for that. But if you had not finished your classes before the 2 years, your school fees is still going to be high because you still have to take classes. And in that case, Korean government might not pay, or they might pay just half. So just try to make sure you finish. If you are not able to graduate, at least make sure you finish your classes. Even PhD, they covered for 3 years. But we all know that it's very difficult to finish a PhD in 3 years in most cases. People spend 4, 5, even 6 years on their PhDs. In my laboratory, I had a lab mate that spent 6 years for his PhD. But even in that situation, Korean government will cover only 3 years. So those 3 years, just make sure you finish all your classes in those 3 years. And any other subsequent year you're spending in the lab, make sure it's only for research or thesis or stuff like that. And that way your school fees is going to be very low, your tuition is going to be very low, and Korean government will still pay for it. Oh, also, I forgot to mention something. The language school, if you don't finish the language school in 1 year and you need to extend by extra 6 months, like I mentioned earlier, the Korean government would not pay 100%. They'll pay only 50% of the money, and then you have to pay the rest. So make sure you also finish your language year in one year. Don't extend. Try to make sure you get your topic, at least topic 3 within that 1 year. If you don't, you have to pay half, then they'll pay half. All right. But if you do it in 1 year, they pay 100% for you. But it's really not that difficult to get it, so I think you can do it.
Wow, guys, this is clearly like a great opportunity. I'm sold. Like I'm finna quit my job and come study. That's how much she's selling this. Evie's selling this to us. It's free. They pay for everything if you don't fail. So I guess that's great, right? So now my next question is, what type of visa do you have, and does it allow you to work while studying here in Korea? Because we are on the E2 visa and it only allows us to have one job only, which is a teaching, so we cannot have part-time jobs. Yeah, I'm curious to know.
First of all, you are coming for the language year, right? D4 is for studying the Korean language. D4 visa is renewable after every year. So if you're not able to pass the Korean language within 1 year, you have to renew your D4 visa. And then once you finish the language year successfully and you're about to start your degree, you switch to the D2 visa. The D2 visa is what you're going to have until your graduation from your master's or undergrad or PhD or whatever. All right. Now this D2 visa enables you to work, but part-time. You can only work, I think, about 20 hours or less during the semester or during the holidays. I think it's actually during the holidays. I'm not so sure, but yeah, you're able to work. But for a regular person that is not under the Korean government scholarship, so for example, if you got a professor scholarship and you came on your own, or you are the one paying your tuition by yourself and you came to Korea on your own, you are eligible to work part-time. There's a number of hours, I can't remember, 20 or less you can work, and you have to get a work permit, part-time work permit. If you don't, then the Korean government will fine you when they find out, and trust me, you don't want to be fined and deported, right? So you should make sure you get the work permit, the student's work permit, if you want to work part-time. If you want to work during the semester, I think it has to be something related to what you're studying and maybe within your school environment or something like that. That's why you can get internships, because the Korean government doesn't want to pay for you to come to Korea and then get distracted by doing some other part-time jobs like restaurants or something like that. They feel like you'll be distracted from your studies, and they really care about your studies. So they will usually advise you to do something that is related to your studies. You can go for paid internships. You can work within your school, maybe for your professors as a maybe research assistant, teaching assistant, depending if you're a PhD student or not, and then things like that. But if you're, like I mentioned, you're self-sponsored or you're professor sponsored, you can work anywhere you like as long as it is part-time, because the immigration will not let you work full-time as a student. After your graduation, if you get a job in Korea, you can switch to E7 or E2 or whatever job it is you got in Korea. And if you get married, you can get some other visas, things like that.
Wow, I'm actually so jealous. I'm so jealous that you get to work part-time as well. This is definitely like the dream. Like studying, which is bettering yourself, as well as working. So guys, if you do have opportunity to do this, study here in Korea, please make sure that you take up on this opportunity. I just might, you never know. So as you just mentioned that you can get a job and get a different visa, I just want to know, are your chances higher as a foreigner if you studied in Korea of like securing a job here?
Yes, actually, I just started working last week. I got a job in Korea, so now my visa is changing from D2 to E7. E7 is the regular work visa. But if you don't get a job, you can still legally stay in Korea for up to 2 years. So there is a visa that is available for foreign student that studies in Korea. The visa is called job seeking visa. That visa is the D10 visa. So there is D4 for language year, there is D2 for degree years, and then there is D10 for job seeking. Alright, so the D10 is for 2 years, renewable every 6 months. But there are cases where they might not renew it if they realize that, the first 6 months they gave you, you were not doing anything, you were not working in any place, you were not doing any part-time jobs, you were just chilling. they might not renew it. But if they see that you actually did something during the first 6 months, they might renew for you to have another 6 months and another 6 months and another 6 months. After 2 years, if you don't have a permanent job yet, you will not be given any more chances. You have to go back to your country. Trust me, if you want to stay back in Korea and work, it's good. The pay is good and stuff. Talking about pay, as a GKS student, Global Korean Scholarship student, you have $1,000, 1 million Korean won, depending on the exchange rate. They pay you 1 million Korean won every month for your upkeep. So that's where you pay for your accommodation. If you live off campus, that is where you pay for your accommodation from that money. You feed yourself from that money, and every other regular thing you need to do. But the school covers your tuition. So this money is not for your tuition. You don't have to worry about the tuition. Like I said, I didn't even know how much my tuition cost until I graduated, because I was not paying. I was only receiving my upkeep money. If you get a topic 5 during your language year, they increase it to 1.1 million. So you have extra 100,000 Korean won because you have topic 5. They are happy that you were able to get to the advanced level of Korean within that 1 year. But even if you don't get the topic 5 within that 1 year of your language year, when you are doing your degree, if you feel like a Korean ability has increased, then you can write the exam again on your own. And if you get it topic 5, you can submit it to your school GKS team, and they would start paying you the extra 100K. Once you're out of language school, you pay for yourself if you want to write the exam any other time, because you want to get the money. And then if you're someone that is also doing a part-time job, like I mentioned, then that's more money for you. But if you're working in a lab, it might be difficult for you to even have time for a part-time job, because you spend most of your hours in the lab from morning till evening. It's like a full-time job. You're doing research in your laboratory. You only leave your lab when you have to go for lunch or when you have to go to a class. And then once you finish all your classes, then you're in the lab 24/7. But for those that are in arts and social sciences, they don't have labs, right? They only go to classes, so they might have time for part-time jobs.
What? I'm sold. I'm genuinely sold. Like, they give you money for studying, and like 1 million Korean won is actually a lot, because the talk program before it shut down, they were making 1.5 and they were working, whereas here you're making money while you're bettering yourself and you're studying. Guys, please don't sleep on this. Like, I'm really considering it. Like, genuine. I'm not even joking. So my next question is, based on how competitive Koreans are when it comes to school, do you feel the same pressure as a foreigner, or is it different?
Well, because I'm not the average person, my answer might be a little bit different. I don't really feel that pressure because I don't really care about having first class or graduating with the best scores ever or anything like that. I'm just really content with just not failing. So as long as I'm not failing, I am fine. But if you are someone that, I must get first class, or I must have all A's in my classes, which is easy to get. In graduate school, I think it's very easy to have all A's, because you really don't have to do much for you to pass, literally. And Korean, the A is really high. I think A is from 90 or so, or A plus or something like that. But yeah, it's really, you don't have to put too much effort to really get those scores. Where the hard work comes in is the research part. For undergraduates, I really don't know the system, how it works there, because I didn't study undergraduate in Korea. I did only my postgrad here. For undergraduates, it might be different because you don't have research, you don't have lab and stuff like that. So it might just be based on your grades, and maybe in that case, it might be really difficult and competitive. I didn't have that much pressure. I didn't put the pressure on myself, and thankfully, I had the best professor in the world. He didn't put pressure on me. He let me work at my own pace. I was fine. My lab mates were cool. They helped me in places that I needed help. And it was just great for me, though I can't say for everybody else. I'm aware of the fact that it can be very, very tough. And a lot of people do quit. And a lot of people also succeed until the end. They hold on, they work hard. And because at the end, it's rewarding. If you work hard and you stay true to it until the end, it is really rewarding. You feel relieved, you feel happy that you have a degree, and you're just generally, satisfied and happy. All right, so just try not to put the pressure on yourself. Just work hard. As long as you're not lazy, you're working hard. Don't bother about what other people are doing or what scores other people are getting or how well their own research is going. Just focus on yours and make sure yours is good enough for you and for your professor if you have one, and you graduate. All right.
Yeah. You're definitely not an average person, but that was the same. That's my mentality all the time. I just want to pass. I always used to ask, like, what is the pass mark? If they say 50%, then I just want 51, you know? Like, I'm not aiming for 80 or 70, but because we all have the same degree right now, you know? I mean, when you do want to work here, they do want to check your transcript, but I don't think it's that deep. Like, as long as you have the degree. And that is great advice, like, to not, like, try not to put the pressure on yourself. That is very, very important. That's how I lived, like, my whole life. Just, I don't put pressure on myself, and my parents don't do the same thing, or my friends, or anyone for that matter. So please protect your mental health, guys. Pace yourself. So my next question is, please give me one pro of studying at your current university.
So one advantage of studying at the University of Ulsan, they should really come and pay me, since I'm speaking all this nice about them.
They actually should pay you. That was funny. They should pay you.
Okay, so one pro of studying at the University of Ulsan is that you can take your classes completely in English, so you don't need to know Korean. However, a requirement to graduate is for you to have either a Korean language score or an English score. So if you don't want to learn Korean, it's still fine. You can just write the English exam, which you already know, and you pass it, you submit the score, you can graduate, and you can take your courses entirely in English. I have friends that all their classes 100% from when they started were in English till when they graduated.
And I think that's great that you can study without literally a lick of Korean. It's advisable to take, I think I would take the Korean class because it will help you navigate in the country, especially if you want to work here after studying. But you know, if you don't want to learn the language, then you can also just take everything, like she said, 100% English. Guys, what's your excuse at this point? I hope you're applying after this video.
One con I would say is, what is one disadvantage? Actually, I don't really know, because even as a GKS student, you have a lot of advantages.
Man, the scholarship is good. There's not even a con, you know? I mean, if there is, it's not that important. Like, she mentioned so many pros that, guys, I'm sold. I'm questioning my decisions of teaching instead of studying. I know you touched a little bit on this, that the money that they give you, the 1 million Korean won, also could cover your apartment. I just want to know, was this by choice, or do you have the option of living in university, like the dorm? Like, how does it work?
So while I was studying, in my first semester, I stayed in the dormitory. The Korean government do not pay for your accommodation, all right? They give you 1 million won, like I said, and from that you can pay for your accommodation. So if you're living in the dormitory, you have to take out the dormitory fees from your accommodation, from your 1 million that they gave you, and pay. If you don't want to stay in the dormitory and you want to stay outside campus, off campus, you have to also take out the money from your 1 million and pay for your accommodation outside. Accommodation outside, depending on the city you're living, can range from $200 to $250 to $300, even as high as $500 if you feel like you can afford it. But someone that is receiving 1 million, why would you want to pay 500,000 for a house and then be left with only 500? I don't think that's very wise, right? You should pay less and save more. And when you save money, you can go on trips. There are a lot of countries within Asia, close to Korea, you can visit. So why not just save your money and do fun things with it, rather than using everything to pay for accommodation? So you can pay for a house of like $200 or $250 or even $300, and then have the rest to feed and do all the other exciting things you want to do. There might be some schools that have very high dormitory fees. Like my friend in her school, she said their dormitory fee was like $600. So she couldn't afford that, of course. How would you afford to pay $600 every month from 1,000 and you have only 400 left? That's too much. So she decided to stay outside, to stay off campus, and she paid $250 off campus, and she had like the rest for herself. Want to stay outside? How do you find your apartment by yourself? So they have a lot of websites in Korea, a lot of mobile apps in Korea that you can find a house from, which is very, very convenient. There are a couple of them: Dabang, Jigbang, Peter Pan, Neva Budongsan. There's a couple of them like that. You can just download them and put in your location. It will show you all the available houses. Also put in the type of house you want. Do you want a one room? They have 2 rooms, and 1 bedroom and 1 living room or something like that. They have 3 rooms. They have, depending on whichever one you want. So you put in your location and also put in the kind of room you want and search. So once you search, it will give you a list of all the available rooms that meet your specification.
Wow, that is so interesting. It's actually very similar to us as teachers, because we have the option of staying in the provided home that your school provides, or finding your own apartment, which the deposit is the reason why most people don't move out. It's really high. So my last and final question is it easy to date and make friends in Korea?
That one, making friends in Korea, that's important if you want to have a social life. You should make friends. It will also help you to learn the language faster. If you make Korean friends, they can help you learn the language faster because you get to communicate with them in Korean and stuff. And also you can do language exchange, teach them English unofficially, because as students you cannot teach English officially, right? So you teach English unofficially. That's they're not paying you. So you teach them English, they teach you Korean, like an exchange like that. And then you hang out together and all those stuff. So that's one perk of living in the dormitory. I would advise you in your first semester, live in the dormitory at least. It's to help you to make friends with your roommates or people around your room, maybe next door or something. If you don't live in the dormitory, you go straight to live outside. It might be difficult for you to make friends around your area. So live in the dormitory at least your first semester and try to make friends. And then how about dating in Korea? I don't know, because I have not dated anyone in Korea. Alright, so I really can't say much about that. But there are a lot of people that date Koreans, so I don't know if it's easy or if it's difficult. You have to get that experience yourself when you come to Korea, or you have to ask people that have actually dated in Korea, and they'll tell you how easy or difficult it is. As for me, I don't know. Maybe when I get the experience and if Palesa, features me again, then maybe I can tell you. I hope I was able to do justice to most of the questions. I'm not like a popular YouTuber or anything. I'm not even a YouTuber. I'm only answering these questions because I have some knowledge. But if you'd like to follow me, I'm on Instagram as abtunyan, ab_tunyan, EBI_TUNYAN. You can find me there on IG, and when I have time, when I'm not working, or like when I was studying, if I'm not in school, weekend holidays, I travel around Korea and I take pictures of me, of the places, so you can learn about places like that from my IG also, so you can check me out. It was nice being on here and talking to you guys. Okay, bye.
Oh my gosh, I was laughing at the fact that you got so nervous towards the end. I'm like, why? Like, you were fine the whole time. Thank you so much, Ibis. Thank you. Like, we really need to meet. This was so informative. Wow, I'm sold personally, and I know a lot of you guys are sold. Please make sure you comment down below if you do have any other questions. I will ask her and we will try to answer together. And make sure that you follow her on Instagram. As you can see, her Instagram is fire. Can you see? Make sure that do the right things. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Tell me what other information you'd like to know from me, and there will be a part 2 of another girl who is studying in Korea, and maybe having 2 different experiences will help. And as Evie said, she'll come back on my channel once she's started dating, if she will date. I want to wish you all the best of luck, Evie, with your life in Korea, starting a new job here. And thank you, really truly grateful. And this was, I love this, very informative. Thank you guys. My battery's dying, so I'm rushing this. I will see you next time. Peace.